Hi, welcome to Totally Tiger. Before we get started, let's go over our supplies. So as you can see, first here I've got my image transferred over onto my painting surface. So you want to get that prepped. As far as paint goes, you are going to need orange. I have got Naples yellow, which is just kind of a duller yellow. I've got phthalo green, black, and white, and of course you can use any brand of paint that you like. I'm using heavy bodied paint today, but craft paint works just as well. As far as paintbrushes, I just recommend a variety of sizes. Use whatever is convenient for you to get the details that you want. My most frequently used brushes are a flat that I use for large surface areas, and a smaller round, which I will use for details. But the sizes of brush that you use is totally up to you. We are painting, so you will want water, you will want paper towels, you will want a plate to, or a palette to put your painting on. Now this painting we are going to tackle in 4 steps. So the first step, we are going to paint the background and get our details on there. Our second step, we are going to add our yellow and orange tones to our tiger. Our third step is going to be adding our black accents and the stripes on the tiger. And our fourth step will be finishing touches and details. So we'll be adding white whiskers, little snippets of fur, things like that. So those are the 4 steps. And so if you need to, you can pause this video and get all of your supplies ready. And once you're ready, we'll continue. Alright, for the background step, we are going to get 3 colors of paint on our palette here. Our phthalo green, and then Mars black, and titanium white. Alright, for the background, I am going to start by adding just a nice coat of my phthalo green to cover my white canvas. When we work with acrylics, we start from our background and go forwards, so that way we can get nice, clean, crisp edges as we work to our top layers. So don't worry too much if your lines at this point are not perfect. When we paint in our tiger, we will perfect those. Alright, so this is the first coat on my background. As you can see, it's still a little transparent and kind of messy. What I'm going to do is let this dry, and then I'm going to come back and add a second coat over the top. Alright, for this second coat of the background, what I'm going to do is I am going to take a large brush and I'm just going to kind of squish some of my phthalo green all around this background. Then I'm going to pull some phthalo green and mix with a bit of black. And you can see I did not mix a lot of black in there. It doesn't take much to darken that color. And so now I've got kind of a nice dark phthalo, and I'm going to just tap that in and around as well. Right now I'm just putting color on my page. Alright, so now I've got plenty of paint on here and I can just kind of blend it out by tapping. So I kind of want a mottled background, just real blotchy. And so I'm going to come around and just tap this out, spreading this paint around, kind of mixing that regular phthalo with the darker phthalo. Just giving it a nice splotchy green blended background. So as you can see, I have kind of a spongy effect going on here. That's what we're going for. And so once again, I am going to dry this layer and then we will move on with some detailing in the background. Alright, so the next thing you want to do is mix up some of your phthalo green with a little bit of white. Just like the black, you're not going to have to mix a whole lot of white in there to get this color lighter. Phthalo green mixes very easily. Alright, so we've got some nice white going on there, or a lighter white into our phthalo. That's what I was trying to say. And what I'm going to do is switch to a round brush, and we are going to sketch some kind of jungly leaves on our background. Now the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of sketch them in, and then I'll fill them out after I'm done sketching. So I'm just kind of going for general tropical leafy greeny shape here. But there's no right or wrong. Any way you make leaves is fine, really. Once you have them sketched in, what you want to do now is just kind of refine that shape and fill them in however you want to. So I'm just going to add just a little more shape. you're happy with kind of this leafy background, what we're going to do now is pull some yellow into the mix. So I'm just going to grab kind of a dollop of yellow and mix this in with my phthalo mixture here. Is just going to change that green slightly. I'm just looking for a different shade of green that we haven't used quite yet. We're just going to continue adding some abstract flowers to the background. So what I like to do is just kind of make a star shape and then turn it into a flower, just kind of adding petals all the way around. It's kind of like a 5-pointed flower. So I start as a star, and I turn each one of those points into a rounded flower petal. That's my puppy. He's saying hi. He likes to bark when I'm recording. I think he thinks I'm talking to him, so. So just keep adding those star flowers. We are just trying to fill in some of this empty space and add some layering of the greens here in the background. This isn't going to be the focal point. It just gives a little bit of background interest. Of course, depending on the size of canvas you're working with, will depend on how many stars you get, how many star flowers you put in there, but totally up to you. I might even add like a couple here that are just kind of hidden either by the edge or the tiger. All right, once you are satisfied with the amount of star flowers you have, what I'm going to do now is mix even more yellow with a little white into that mixture. And it's just going to lighten and yellow my green just a pinch more. And now I'm just going to go in and add just some little dots. I don't think this is different enough, so I'm going to add even more yellow. All the yellow. however many you add is totally up to you. We're just kind of adding some variation in that background. And so once you finish that step, we are done with step 1, which is the background. And if you want to, you can let this layer dry, or we can move right on into adding the color, the yellow and the orange to the tiger. All right, so for this step, I am going to get a little more of my yellow, and I'm going to get my cad orange. Basically, you just need a shade of yellow and a shade of orange. And I'm going to use a clean brush. And what I'm going to do is start with my yellow. And I'm going to follow my shape. I'm just going to add some yellow here, kind of determining where my colors go. So I'm going to kind of make a line about halfway down the head that comes all the way down and around his neck. This is all going to be yellow. And then in the curve of his neck and his back, I'm also going to add yellow. So all this here is going to be yellow. And what I'm going to do is mix a nice dollop of white with this yellow. We're going to get this nice and light. What we're going for is kind of a nice buttery yellow. If you've got a more primary yellow tone, it'll be more like, I don't know what the word is I'm thinking of, kind of like a light banana yellow. But the idea here is just nice light color. And so I am going to just go ahead and brush this color on nice and thin. If you can see the stripes from the transfer, that is ideal, but certainly it's not a deal breaker. We can definitely add stripes on our tiger without seeing them from the transfer. And this is the part of tonight's show where I do kind of clean up those edge lines. So just keep that in mind as you're applying your yellow. So that is my first patch there. And we're just kind of applying a block of solid color here. I'm not worried about any blending out at this point. One shape I am going to keep nice and clean is the eye. I don't want to lose the eye there. A lot of our ear gets black, so you can go right around that ear shape. Alright, so now we've got this nice buttery color on here. And what I'm going to do now is wipe off my brush. I don't need to wash it, and I'm just going to dip right in this white, and I'm going to come around these areas where the buttery yellow meets the white of the tiger, and I am just going to blend some white right into there as if that color blends out into the fur. And because it is still wet and because I had a little yellow on my brush, it should blend out rather nicely for you. And then if you want to clean up that white space, I'm just going to add a little white right down the center of his body, just to dull out those transfer lines a bit and clean up my page. If you're painting on a white canvas, adding the white in is kind of optional, but I do like to do that just so I have my entire piece covered in paint, and then also to make sure it's all sealed and the texture is consistent. If you overblend, of course, you can always just tap in a little bit of that buttery yellow wherever you need to. Alright, so that was step 1 of the tiger cut. Actually, it's step 2. Kind of 2A was the yellow, and then 2B is going to be the orange. And I don't really need to wash my brush. We can move right into that color. Alright, so I'm going to dip my brush right into the orange, and then we are going to add an orange layer about halfway through that yellow. So we are going to do the same process again. I'm going to add in the orange, and then I'm going to take some yellow and blend it out. So again, nice clean edge. And then the same thing around this edge, about halfway past the yellow. Orange. Alright, so again, I'm just going to wipe off my brush. I'm going to dip into that buttery yellow, and then I am going to blend out the edge of that orange into the yellow. Once you do that, you may notice that your orange is a little transparent, so if you want to go through and add another layer of orange on your most orange parts, which would be pretty much the edges, do not be afraid to do that. Definitely enhance that orange color anywhere you need to. And I'm just going to pull a little bit of this orange down his nose as well. keep in mind, guys, whenever we're talking about animals or flowers, anything in nature, there's natural variation. So don't feel like your tiger has to have orange in the exact same spots that my tiger has orange. It's not a perfect science here. We're just laying down color. Alright, so that's it for step 2, which is the yellow and the orange of the tiger. And now we move on to step 3, which is the black parts. You don't have to dry your layers, but I do like to dry in between my layers. So I am going to stop the video for a moment, dry this off, and then I'll return and do the black. Alright, so for the black, I am going to get a smaller size round brush. It doesn't need to be tiny, and we are just going to go right into these details. If you have difficulty moving your heavy body black around, you can just add a little water to your paint. I'm going to start up at the top and I am going to move down, and that way I'm not putting my arm in wet paint, in wet black paint. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I am going to paint this little triangle on the back of the ears. And then he's got a little cuff over the top and back of this ear. And then the ear kind of has a black furry outline, so I'm just going to add a little bit of black around the edge. I'm going to leave some white, and then I'm going to add the black on the inside of his ear where the shadow would be. The same thing over here. I'm going to continue that edge down. And then I am going to add kind of the black shadow area there. Alright, the next black space is going to be his nose, and he's got kind of this, I don't know what you would call it, this weird little boomerang shaped nose here. And then we are going to move into the black around his mouth. And so his mouth, if you've lost your lines, kind of comes in. It's almost like a clown mouth, where he's got this big black patch that surrounds his lips here. And then what I'm going to do is start to add black around the eye. Now this guy has kind of a, I don't know, we're going to give him some eyeliner. So black around the top, black around the bottom. And then what I'm going to do is get a finer brush. So if you have a nice thin brush that you can use, this is one of the areas I want fine details, and I'm going to come around the front curve of his eye and up. And I'm going to add kind of just a little stripe in there. He's also got some black in front, so I'm going to add a stripe in the front. Now, as you're adding stripes, keep in mind they don't have to look just like mine. The tiger stripes are different from tiger to tiger. Alright, and then in the corner of his eye here, that is going to be black as well. Of course, he's got black in the very center of the pupil there. Looks kind of goofy now, but we're going to add more touches in later. Alright, so I can go back to my somewhat larger brush here. Come down this black just a pinch. So around this eye, we're going to create some more lines. These tigers have stripes all over their face, so I just pulled that up to a little curve, and I'm just going to add in some stripes. If you can see the stripe lines from your tracer, feel free to use those. Like I said, this is not something that has to be the same between different artists. Alright, just know that the black kind of here on his cheek does travel down to his chin. Right now I'm just doing some geometrical shapes. Once I apply all this black, I'm going to come through and add just a little bit of fur texture. He does have some black coming down from his ear, so I'm just going to put in a little wiggle of a stripe there. And then maybe one off his back here. As we add stripes around his neck, keep in mind there is a curve to the neck, so we're almost making kind of a J shape, and that will help those lines stay within the shape of the tiger. And so as they go to his back, they kind of J out that way. So I just kind of draw in the line first, and then I can go through and just add some thickness to it. And right now I'm just kind of giving it a little wiggle. Alright, so now I've got these perfectly imperfect little stripes, and so I'm going to grab my thin brush again, and we're just going to add a little fur texture. And so I'm going to start up here at the top and just kind of pull out little fur hairs from the black here. And I don't need to do it everywhere, but just here and there, just adding a few lines. It's going to give the impression of a furrier tiger. And you can also, while you've got your small brush, just perfect any of these little lines if you. I'm also going to make sure that I add some around the ear. And that shadow in the ear comes out. Make that a little furry as well. And you don't have to go crazy with this, just a little bit here and there makes a big difference. And while I have my fine tipped brush out, I am going to just go over the outline of this guy's chin just a little bit to make that nice and clean. And if you want to, you can go around the outline of the top of his head as well. You give him an outline, he'll have a less realistic look, but it kind of cleans things up, so I like the look of the outline. And if you want to, you can always add a few little stripes on his nose there. All right, we are almost done with the black. The last thing I want to have you do while you have your thin brush out is we're just gonna add some spots. And we're gonna add 3 rows coming kind of on a slant down from his nose. So this is where his whiskers go. All right, so we're gonna let that black settle. And the last step, step 4, is details. So what we want to do is get a small to medium sized brush. We're going to add some color in his eye. Most tigers have green or blue eyes, so I am just going to mix. Actually, I still have some of this green. Green. And I'm just going to color around that color. I'm going to paint around that pupil with a nice green. Since I already had that mixed up. All right, it doesn't take long for my paint to dry, so I'm going to move right into some of these white details. So I've got my nice thin brush again. What I'm going to do is just add a little white on his nose here. Just a little hint that there's a little wetness and reflection. I am going to add a little white here on his mouth. That's kind of where his gums hang out. A little bit there. And now with the white, what I'm going to do is anywhere that there is fur, where the black meets the white, I'm going to add a little more fur around those areas. So I'm just brushing in a little furry texture up around the ears into the black. So I pulled the black into the white, and now I can pull some of this white into the black. And so right here, kind of where the white of the fur is, I'm going to do that same technique where we pulled the black out, and now I'm just going to pull a little bit of that white into the black. And we don't need a lot, less is more. Just adding a little bit of that texture in there. I'm going to take a little white and I'm just going to add the tiniest little pinch right there in his eye. That gives him kind of that glimmer in the eye there. You can clean up the white of the eye if you'd like to, or if you need to. And then our last step is to add some whiskers. Now you can do that with your thin paintbrush, or if you have a white gel pen, that's a nice easy option too. I just kind of pull some whiskers down. You're not going to be able to see most of the whisker. We just want to give the impression of whiskers, right? So just a few lines. And that is it, my friends. That is the Totally Tiger lesson here. So you can add any finishing touches that you would like to your tiger. And I hope that you share it with me. You can tag me at Painted Cicada or share it with me in my group. And I thank you so much for participating, and I hope you love your Totally Tiger. Have a great night, everybody.